Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tomorrow. We're very excited to have you all here with us today. I am Space Mike, and I'm joined today by Dutta and Ryan Caton, who we have had a very extraordinary week this past week. A lot of folks in the United States are either having elation, despair, or confusion, and nothing else.
I've got them all.
You've got them all. Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So we'll get to the politics a little bit later, but we wanted to talk a bit about some of the lunar missions that are ongoing right now, and another mission that is upcoming in the coming months here. Some really exciting instruments that are on board these robotic landers that we'll talk about, and also a few announcements. Not a whole lot of details yet, but at least aspirations for Martian missions and potentially getting humans to Mars as soon as possible. So quite a lot of stuff that we wanted to talk about this week. But first of all, how are you guys doing? How have things been for you this week? I think I already know how you feel, Dada. But Ryan, how you doing? It's been a pretty crazy week.
Yeah, it's much more relaxing than the week prior.
Yes.
Shall we say? It's been nice to sleep at regular intervals. But yeah, it's certainly a whirlwind start to the next few years.
Absolutely.
This week has been the longest 6 months.
Kind of feels that way, doesn't it? Kind of feels that way. Well, last week before we had the very exciting New Glenn and Starship launches, there was a lunar mission that launched on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, launching 2 robotic landers. One for Japan with a Japanese company named Ispace, which is actually an international company. They have offices in Japan. They also have offices here in the United States and also offices in Luxembourg, and deals with different countries to utilize their ground stations in order to keep contact with their landers. So this mission had 2 of these small robotic landers that aside from the Ispace lander, which is called Hakuto R, there was also a mission called Blue Ghost from Firefly, not to be confused with Blue Moon by Blue Origin. And I actually just found out this week what Blue Ghost even stands for. So it's built by Firefly Aerospace, and interestingly enough, it's named after a species of the insect firefly called Phacus reticulata, otherwise known commonly in the southeastern United States as the blue ghost fireflies. So a little bit
Easy
cheeky
for
there.
you to say.
A little bit cheeky there, but that's where that came from. So I think that's pretty exciting. So first, let's talk a little bit about the Blue Ghost lander. This one on the stack launched first, and both of these are doing similar types of operations. They both are equipped with a drill, and they are going to be doing sampling of different areas on closer towards the North Pole of the moon, and especially looking for lunar ice. With the Blue Ghost mission, this one is doing checkouts right now in Earth orbit. Firefly has reported that they have been able to not only establish communication with the spacecraft, but are getting power generated from their solar panels, and have even done the initial tests with their engines to verify that everything will be able to actually work before they do their mission. Now, we're about 2 weeks away from them doing their maneuvers in order to actually go towards the moon, where it'll transit for about 4 days. And after being in orbit of the moon for a little while and making sure that they have everything good to go, and making sure that the LiDAR sensors and making sure that the distance of where they're wanting to land on is actually a flat plane. They will be able to then land on the moon and have operations for hopefully as long as possible. They are hoping that after a couple of days of operation, it'll go into lunar night and should be still have power for about 5 hours. And hopefully they will be able to reestablish contact with it after a period of a lunar night. After that, they intend to... Go ahead, Detta.
That'll be spectacular, seeing lunar night.
Yeah, finally see some stars from the surface of the moon instead of just a black sky that we're used to seeing from most missions.
It's real.
It's real.
You said they're gonna orbit the Earth for 2 weeks first.
Well, actually, for about a month, but we're getting close to the 2-week mark
that?
right now. A big
Why is
thing.
that?
A big thing from that is that they want to verify that all the systems on board the spacecraft are working before they actually send it off towards the moon. And the Blue Ghost is going to be using its own... right now, it's in a really highly elliptical orbit so that it can use its own engines to change its trajectory in order to intercept the moon and enter into orbit around the moon. So the first purpose of this is just making sure that everything is working so far. And they have, in fact, been able to capture a little bit of footage from their tests. Let me switch to that real quick. I'm going to stop.
It's interesting that they would orbit around the Earth so long.
For so long, yeah. I mean, apparently there's been quite a few other missions that haven't been able to verify their systems. Like the first CLIPS mission was an astrobotic lander that was launched by the first launch of the Vulcan Centaur. Unfortunately, its engines did not fire, and it was stuck in that elliptical orbit and re-entered the Earth's atmosphere after a couple of weeks. So very unfortunate, but better that we have... Look at that. Look at that. That is real footage that they're capturing. Obviously, that's a time lapse, so it's sped up, but that's a real photo of Earth and the cameras that they are capturing of this. So,
oh my God, it's round.
Some pretty interesting instruments are on board this payload, though. There's a lot of stuff checking out the chemical composition of the regolith. There's also going to be a drill. A big thing of a lot of these commercial lunar payloads missions is looking for lunar ice and the possibilities of being able to separate that ice from the lunar regolith. But one of the experiments that I found most interesting is something that they call the EDS, or the electrodynamic dust shield, which is essentially sending an electrical charge in certain parts of the lander to be able to mitigate the dust. Here, actually, I'm going to switch to this tab instead and just show.
Let me show their mission patch real quick. It's pretty dope.
Yeah. That is pretty. Ghost Riders in the sky.
Riders in the sky.
Yeah. I think it's pretty interesting. And I did want to share just a quick experiment that they have from this electrodynamic system. And with this, I just think that it's so fascinating that they are able to just have a small electrical charge that they're able to do. Let me fast forward just a little bit so we can actually see the demonstration of this. I think that this is a brilliant way. There we go. I went a little bit past it. I think that this is a brilliant way to be able to keep your instruments clean. And if only we had had something like this on a lot of the early Martian landers to be able to get a lot of the dust that accumulates on their solar panels. But yeah, just check this out. I think that this is so cool and really simple, elegant system to be able to get a lot of that dust that'll get kicked around, not just from the landing itself, but from the operation of the drill, to be able to get that dust off of critical components. So just a small thing, but I hope that that gets adopted and that it works really well and that they are able to do more things like that and be able to protect a lot of these pieces of equipment that we will be sending out in the future. So
that's pretty slick.
Yeah,
we need that on solar arrays.
Yes, we definitely need that on solar arrays all over the place.
That is awesome.
A lot of people have noticed in the past we've had quite a few missions fail or partially succeed because we had a really tall lander with a odd center of gravity and tipped over, or even during their landing came in at a bad angle, which is what happened to the Japanese Slim lander and broke one of the
Who
lander
would
legs.
have thought?
Who would have thought? So it's good to see the Blue Ghost lander being a bit more stocky, and I'm hopeful. This is their first attempt at landing on the moon, but I'm hopeful that everything goes well and that they're able to learn from mistakes of the past and be able to collaborate with NASA and have their expertise and their data at hand to be able to hopefully pull this off. But so far, everything is going well for that. And if everything
Who would have thought?
if everything goes well, they should be trying to attempt that landing on the moon somewhere around March 2nd. So we're still a little over a month away, but pretty exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, on Blue Ghost 1, they're one of the NASA or just one of the experiments on board has multiple materials, and they're going to be testing like the interaction with the materials with the lunar regolith and stuff. And that's really exciting because, Axiom Space are currently developing an EVA suit for walking on the moon, so it's going to be really interesting. That data obviously will be shared with everyone, but especially I'm sure if you are currently developing an EVA suit for the lunar surface, then that publicly accessible data on how different materials interact with real regolith, like we're not playing with simulants anymore, this is real lunar regolith, that's going to be really exciting and really, really interesting data that you can then use to your benefit to make sure that your suit, doesn't get all caught up and horrible with all the regolith and start tearing itself apart.
I wonder what the actual power consumption is of that.
Of the materials experiment?
No, the electronic rejection of debris.
I am not sure. All I know for sure is that the entire spacecraft is, with its solar panels, should be capable of only about 650 watts. So I would assume that that's just one of the almost a dozen instruments that are on board. I would assume that it was a pretty low amount of power for that. Of course, they wouldn't want to run it continuously, but with only 650 watts to work with, it's got to work within that limit and not shut down other systems.
That circuit seems like something that provides a dead short, and that uses a dead short either with an alternating frequency or a direct frequency in order to be able to generate current or generate an electrical field that would reject the material. Which anything that's a dead short is kind of power hungry, like light bulbs.
Good point. So yeah, hopefully when they turn that on, it doesn't cause for all the power to drain.
They might have limited use of it in that respect.
Possibly so.
Pauline Brock wants one for her house.
Just magically clear all the dust away.
And NRJ asks, Mars regolith is charged and sticks as well, so would this work in that environment as well? Cool ideas.
I would think so. I mean, you probably would need something a bit more powerful in order to do that. But, I would think that it would be able to work. Of course, we're just going to have to do more missions and see. Maybe we can throw one of those on board, one of the cargo missions coming up in the next 2 years, if SpaceX is serious about their Mars ambitions.
Somewhat Exchangeable says, I seem to recall the amount of power for that system was surprisingly tiny, which may be true because those wires are very, very fine. But I'm curious. Jacob Bouchard says 650 is quite a bit. Some satellites are closer to 15. Yes, however, the iMac that I'm using to run this show is more than 650 watts. So I can't run a drill and static rejection of debris and computers at the same time on 650 watts. So they still got to be careful.
Not only running their computers, but running the communication systems, making sure that they're returning at least a little bit of telemetry, and coordinating with the ground stations so that for certain parts of the mission they can return at least photos, but hopefully video as well.
Yeah, and Ika looks like they only like only short on times are needed. Yes, but you still have to have the energy to be able to provide those, especially if you're using it on solar panels in order to be able to clear debris away so that your solar panels maintain the efficiency that you need in order to be able to continually generate the electricity that you require.
Drew D asks a good question. How do simulators work? Does each project create their own? Is there one overarching simulator for every project? Does each company have their own simulator? I think the answer to that is yes and no. Each company does have stuff that they do, but there's also coordination with NASA. They have, lunar simulant material like at JPL. I believe they have some stuff over at Marshall Space Flight Center as well, but I might be mixing that up with
We had an
the Ohio
interview
one.
with a company that makes regolith simulants for different locations. Trying to remember their name, but
Photon
they had
Empress. Ryan is a simulation. He may know.
they I mean, based on the geology and estimations and research and whatever, any resource they can get, they formulate the simulant to perform as close to that as they can, and they have to continually update their processes to make it work, make it work the same. But like on the moon, all of the edges are sharp because you don't have wind that's constantly blowing sand across each other, abrading against each other, making all of your corners round. So there's different things for each different location that makes it a challenge to make a proficient simulant.
I don't know how many companies make that, but I do know that a lot of these guys purchase from those companies, including ones who are trying to grow plants inside of lunar simulant and see if they can be able to have that as a viable way of growing certain types of plants.
And I'm sure every batch is a little bit custom.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially if you're go ahead.
Go on, Mike.
Especially if you're trying to land in a specific area that might not have the exact same type of makeup as other areas, because you might have a little bit more a type of magma going on, or you might have a lot more silt and not as much of rocky material, but still abrasive nonetheless, but slightly different makeup depending on where you intend to land on the moon. So
yeah, I just did a quick Google search, and the second link is a website, and you can literally buy your own lunar regolith. So I've shared my screen, but there's literally just different batches of lunar regolith that you can just buy. It's expensive, but this is like custom, like you're not just going outside with a spade and digging up a bit of dirt, right? This is custom made stuff. But yeah, you can buy your own lunar regolith from different parts of the lunar surface. Like, here you go, you got some lunar highlands. It's not that expensive.
it's awesome.
£36 a kilo.
Apparently, Photon Empress thinks that you just need to chop up a bunch of razor blades and call it lunar regulus simulant. And, I'm not going to hate on that. That it might actually be somewhat close to the abrasion that you would be experiencing.
I'm not sure that's how that works.
No, probably not really.
It doesn't work like that. None of this works like that.
Rick V, knowing Firefly, once they achieve something, they start selling it as a solution to others. Yeah, that's another part of the hopes for this mission. If they succeed, then they might have a whole bunch of orders for their Blue Ghost landers and maybe even bigger landers in the future.
Just keep the proportions the same. Don't be making silly mistakes.
Yeah, stop with the tall landers, and if you do have them, at least change their center of gravity to be closer towards the legs.
It's not just center of gravity; it's the moment as well. Even if your center of gravity is low, you have a taller moment, and that affects your ability to land safely. Now, our landing systems are better than they have been. Better than they were on Apollo, that's for sure. But there's still risk, as evidenced by several recent attempts to land that fell over.
had the Slim Lander and the first mission from Intuitive Machines that also fell over. However, both of them were able to generate power and return telemetry and still do a handful of experiments, but not all of the experiments that they had planned.
Yeah.
I was describing to somebody who had not kept up with all of it, the entry process for the Mars exploration rovers, Spirit and Opportunity. And if you want to do something silly, then make yourself a pyramid inside of a bunch of airbags and let it drop it on the surface, let it roll and tumble, and then open it up like a flower, and it will always land on its feet.
Is that the cat landing system? Or inspired by cats, maybe? Well, let's talk about the other mission that was on board this flight, and that was the Japanese Ispace lander. This one is pretty interesting. This is actually the second time that they have done this. This is their second mission of the Hakuto R program. Hakuto is the name of the lunar rabbit that's in the Chinese folk mythology story. And this one is doing it a lot different. Whereas the Blue Ghost is using its own engines to travel to the moon in only 4 days after its after its checkouts in Earth orbit, the Hakuto lander is doing a really low energy efficiency gravity assist capture. So it's actually going to take several months. It's going to be in high Earth elliptical orbit for about 3.5 months before doing this rendezvous procedure this animation that you see on screen, where after it does a gravity capture of the moon, it'll swing really far out before finally rendezvousing with the moon, going into orbit around it. And same thing as the Blue Ghost lander, it's going to be in orbit of the moon for a couple of days, up to 2 weeks, to also test out a lot of its systems and verify that everything is working and good to go. They plan on landing near the North Pole of the moon, and they want to land in an area that has continuous contact with the Earth. Last time, they had a problem where its sensors had a fault. It detected that it was near the surface when it was still about 5 kilometers away from the surface. And so it stayed at a hover until it ran out of fuel and then crashed into the surface of the moon. So they think that they have solved those problems and verified that everything is going to run smoothly this time. And if everything goes according to plan, they do have a small rover on board, which they're calling the Tenacious rover, which is going to scoop up a couple of samples, and then I just threw this on to.
And they're going to find a city on the moon.
That's right. This is the secret military moon base that's about to be declassified. No, just kidding. This is their future plans. I figured I would just include this in this little animation video of, some of the things that they hope to be able to support in the future of having a collaboration of robotic spacecraft to be able to do construction. And most importantly, the service that they want to offer is a lot of the communications in order to make, some sort of future lunar mission plan work. So
your future on the moon, clearly sponsored by Bobcat.
That's right.
That's hilarious.
With a co-sponsorship by SpaceX, since they're using their suits for all of this.
Most likely partner at the moment.
That's right.
Based on capability. I did see some magic happen in that animation. They had their little lifeboat capstans, hoist the lander overboard, and then it just dropped to the surface.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they're actually doing that, or if they're going to be doing like an actual winch lowering it down.
From what I could find, it looks that simple. If they do have a winch, it's extremely small, and I couldn't see it in the photos of their integration of this. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. But yeah, it looks like it's just a really simple, pull it over into the right orientation and then just drop it. Although at 1/4 gravity, it should be able to survive that, especially from only,
I don't know. I don't see any suspension on it.
Good point.
You're on the moon. Get out. You're done. Done supporting you. That's a cool looking lander, though.
Yeah.
Do we have an understanding of what size that is?
let me. I had a good picture of the integration for this. Here we go. Let me share this and turn down the volume. So
It's
here,
tiny.
yeah, it's pretty tiny. I mean,
It
so
is tiny.
after it pulls its, to the side there, it's. I mean, I only want to call that like a 2 to 3 foot drop from wherever it's going to be hoisted to before they do the drop. But yeah, small lander. I mean, you can see that comparison to humans for scale, and it is going to have a little bit more height once the landing legs are deployed, which should have already been deployed in Earth orbit. And as far as I know, they've reported that everything has gone well with that. They've tested out the engines in space. Everything has fired for that. And getting plenty of communication and power with it, testing out their different systems on board. So far, everything is going well with this. And something I really admire about Ispace is that there was only a handful of people left over from a Japanese project during the Google Lunar X Prize that were able to, without having businesses of their own, were able to get a whole bunch of sponsors, a lot of Japanese companies, including Suzuki, and were able to get this much mission funded. And if they're successful with this, they have future ambitions for even more, and they have been made eligible to compete in the NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. And if this mission goes well, they might have some NASA instruments on board their third mission, which might launch in 2026, maybe 2027. We'll see how things go, but. Yeah, I think that it's a really scrappy program, and that, even though they weren't able to push forward back in the day during the Google Lunar X Prize over a decade ago, they were able to continue on and get the resources that they needed and the help that they needed from JAXA and even a little bit from NASA in order to make sure that their systems will work well. And as I said, this is their second mission. The first one had that hover, so they believe that they have solved those problems and that they shouldn't have that same error saying that, hey, you're near the surface, we're going to hover right here, and still being 5 kilometers away. And part of that is making sure that they have continuous communication with Earth so that if there's any last-minute problems like that, they can do an override.
That's still was it a 30-second delay?
I believe so, yeah. About a 30-second delay. So you gotta make sure that you got plenty of fuel for any sort of last minute operations like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I wish them luck.
Me too. Yeah, I hope both of those missions go well. Since, though, it's such a long period of waiting for the rendezvous capture with the moon, we're not going to see whether or not that's going to be successful until later this year in the summertime, like somewhere in the May, June timeline, depending on how long they stay in orbit of the moon, checking out their systems for the last time before attempting the landing.
Do they have a good history of their orbital trajectories being accurate?
On their first mission, everything went according to plan. Like everything literally went perfectly up until the landing operation, and even then, it was still able to hover and sit there and wait for transfer and signals. But from what I can understand from their debriefings, they weren't able to get any sort of update to override it and tell it to keep going before it ran out of fuel. Apparently, it was hovering for somewhere between 7 to 10 minutes before it ran out of fuel and crashed into the surface.
There's your problem.
If the lunar surface had only been where the lander thought it was, then it would have landed successfully. But unfortunately, it was a bit lower by a few kilometers.
It knows where it is because it knows where it isn't.
As far as their orbital mechanics go, they had a similar operation last time of doing this low energy transfer and using the moon's gravity to help capture it. And everything went according to plan last time. So
Nice.
I think that in terms of that, they should be able to at least get to that point again, and we'll see if they'll be able to succeed with the actual landing. Oh man. Someone exchangeable, dust, and power. In the paper I'm looking at, a 30 by 16 centimeter panel needed up to 15 watts, not the K. However, the voltages they were looking at were between 10 to 30. I don't know what that means. KV.
Kilovolts.
Kilovolts. Thank you. So probably a capacitor, not a short.
All right. So there's 30 centimeters. So that's a fairly decent sized panel. 30 by 16. Yeah, I imagine it would be transformed up to a higher voltage, which is a lower amperage, but you lose some in that translation. So whenever you convert something to something else, you lose some of the power. So you're instead of, if you had a 650 watt power supply that was 3 amps, you would be talking about milliamps or even microamps of capacity at a higher voltage. So yeah, I understand, but it does take power, and it does take a not insignificant amount of power to do that. And you still have to be concerned because you have limited resources.
If we ever do get to the point, though, of having some sort of lunar outpost, that would definitely be a good system to have.
I want to drive a Bobcat on the moon. JS Web Music says he's so happy to be alive to witness all this amazing engineering. Very inspiring. What's fascinating to me is that there's so many different solutions to all of these little problems. And I love that about engineering, is that there isn't just one way to skin a cat, for lack of a better term. But even just the orbital mechanics, like you got two companies that are doing something completely different right now at the same time. And neither of them are wrong.
I just love that they were able to combine both these missions onto a single launch. And even though they are doing, similar but very different orbital mechanics in order to rendezvous with the moon, that they were able to launch together. And that's, if everything goes according to plan, that should all work out well, and they won't interfere with each other. I think that's just incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's the SpaceX way, right? What's the best way to save money on a launch? Don't launch. And they just put 2 landers on one launch, and you've saved yourself, however many $1 million. So
the best launch is no launch.
Well, I was reading that on, a lot of Falcon 9 missions, they're not even using the full capacity for the full amount of weight that they can deliver to orbit. Most missions are underperforming in that regard. And so it's just like, man.
Well, the Falcon 9 has a lot of capacity and a lot of capability, which has been developed over hundreds of launches.
Yeah, literally. Got over 400 launches now, and this week they've been able to land for the 400th time. Congratulations, SpaceX. That's a big deal.
God, that's a lot.
That's so crazy. Landing orbital class rockets successfully 400 times. That is just mind-blowing. Now, next month, Intuitive Machines is, well, not next month. It's actually, at the end of next month, Intuitive Machines.
A month today, exactly, net at least.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're going to be trying again with their lander, the Intuitive Machines lander. This one is a little bit taller, and they think that they have done enough changes to the landing legs and a little bit of the center of gravity. A couple of things got moved down a little bit. So they're hoping that things will go well this time. Last time, even though it did tip over, they were able to keep communications and have power for not as long as they'd hoped, because I believe only one of the panels was getting any direct sunlight. But this time they think that they have fixed a lot of problems. And there are some pretty interesting experiments that are going on board this one. They're going to do a similar type of plan of what the Blue Ghost lander is doing now, really high elliptical orbits, almost like a geostationary transfer orbit, and then using its own missions to get that last mile. And then, of course, entering in orbit around the moon and doing the landing sequence itself. But something that I find really interesting with this, in addition to, several radiation experiments and magnetometers, it's also going to have a drill that isn't just sampling the lunar regolith, but is actually, they are landing in a spot where they believe that there is a lot of lunar ice around. And what they're hoping is that they will be able to get, even though just a small, tiny, amount of water ice, if it's even there. That's a big question. But the drill system has an electrolysis capability, so that if they do find a small amount of water, they should be able to separate that from the lunar regolith. And then this one is also going to have a small miniature rover. This is built by some of the students at MIT. And there's
so
a little
cute.
And then there's a little mini lander also on board the lander that's going to do little hop missions. And they want to take it as far as 25 kilometers away to land in some of those dark craters that, have a lot of permanently shadowed areas, to see if that would be an even better spot. So,
it's like a Russian doll of a lunar lander. It's like you open it up, there's another lander inside, and then there's another lander inside. It just keeps multiplying. It's brilliant.
And that isn't all. On top of, I got to share this with you. On top of the little rover that you saw out, there's going to be another little miniature rover on top of that rover that's literally the size of your hand, that just has a teeny little camera on board to check things out. And I can't believe this. There's a little lander on top of this already little lander, and a little miniature rover that has magnetic wheels, so it'll actually stick to the top of the other rover to check things out and get different views while they're doing their mission. Also built by the students at MIT. So I think it's hilarious. We got double Russian dolls going on this mission that is launching next month.
Jeez.
I never thought we'd see a lunar rover on a lunar rover.
Reminds
on a
me
lunar rover.
On a lunar rover.
On a lander. There's a hole on the bottom of the sea.
It reminds me of the Yo Dog memes, the exhibit memes. Yo Dog, I heard you like the lunar lander, so I put a little mini lander on top of your mini lander. Oh. But actually, I think it's a cool idea to have, a little miniature camera on magnetic wheels. Like, that could be very useful in the future. Like, I know it's cute and kind of, fun to joke about. But I mean, if you have something going on, like, say, a micrometeorite impact, or you're not getting the type of views that, or not getting the type of power that you're hoping for from solar panels, if you don't have a camera angle that, is fixed stationary on, whatever you're able to include, that you can have this tiny, tiny little thing that can move around, change its angle, and get you different shots. And I think that there is a lot of future use for that someday. And they've also tested these things on zero-G flights to make sure that the magnets on the wheels would actually work. And they tried it on several different materials: sandpaper, cloth, steel, even carbon fiber. And even though it's a really quick test for those zero-G flights in an airplane doing the parabolic arc flights, it worked with all those materials. So they think that everything is going to go smoothly with that. Even though it's just this teeny tiny little thing, I think they were able to do the whole thing for less than $70,000. And they're the big mini rover for less than $1 million. So I think that that's pretty incredible that they are able to do that. And, even though it's small, I am, actually eager to see if everything works for that camera, because it'd be great to have that for, future lunar outpost bases of, hey, I think something got messed up with some of the plumbing outside of HAB 3. Let's send one of these little ant rovers to go get a good camera angle for us before we go do an EVA. I don't know. I think that could be cool in the future.
Yeah.
Someone exchangeable says, let's just hope that doesn't tip over. Jacob Richard says Matroska Lander. JS Web Music says, how cool is that? Now that's cool engineering.
Daniel, the symbiont rover.
Come on, really?
Yep.
Rover. Your rovers. Back up.
Oh, that's redundancy.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, Rick V. If it works, I see future JPL employees. Absolutely.
I keep wondering why current missions don't have mini camera drones that pop out to check the main aircraft. Seems like an obvious thing to do.
Right? Like, it just seems like a good idea.
John Manderson, magnets force vary with temperature. I hope they get their numbers right.
Me too. We'll find out soon. So with that one, I believe that they're launching at the end of February, and if everything goes according to plan, should be landing somewhere around the beginning of April, unless they have any extensions where they have to check things out. Oh, something else about this mission is below the lander, when it gets launched, there's going to be a Esper ring for secondary payloads that are going to deploy, and one of them is going to be a lunar pathfinder mission for NASA that is, helping to look for water ice. It's an orbiter, but there's another mission that is also an orbiter that is going to provide relay communications for not only the Intuitive Mission 2, but future landers in the Commercial Lunar Payload Services program. That one is called Constellation, but they're spelling it weird. They're spelling it, instead of CON for Constellation, they're spelling it KHON. So that relay satellite is called Con1. And for all the future Intuitive Machine lunar lander missions, they're going to have at least one of these relay satellites to essentially set up a network in orbit around the moon so that we have constant communications.
So are you saying we're going to have a constellation of constellation satellites?
That's right.
The K replacement of the C to me is cringy.
Little bit. But probably because it's in KH band.
I get it.
Puns within puns.
Go you. All right.
So yeah, we will find out. But I love the idea of those little mini cameras, and I would love to bring those along with like future space station programs and stuff like that.
No, it's not a bad idea. Drew G says, I'm really happy China is getting serious about space because that is going to drive the U.S. to get serious about space. Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Yeah.
The decision density, I think, is going to be tough in this political atmosphere for the next couple of years.
Right. That's something I'm a bit...
not that I want to get into politics right now.
Yeah.
But...
Just to briefly, I mean, at the inauguration, they talked about, wanting to send humans to Mars, and very, ambiguous. Every president hopes to achieve something cool in their, term. Yeah, but
that goes all the way back to Clinton. So I'm not taking a whole lot of stock in it. Like, put your bucks where your mouth is and get the Buck Rogers going. But I'm sorry. What
I don't like is seeing the sentiment of that the moon is a distraction and let's focus all of our efforts towards Mars. It's like, no, let's do both. And in fact, I want to squeeze another one in there of, taking care of near Earth asteroids as well, doing some deflection, maybe doing some mining, all that type of stuff. But, I think that it would be very wise to continue with these operations, get some stuff going on the far side of the moon, get some stuff near, especially the south pole of the moon, where we think there's a lot more water ice. And if we can do a lot of these in situ resource utilization and separate water from the regolith, we can either use that for drinking water or chemically separate it into rocket fuel. So, I think that it's only a good idea, and we can do radio astronomy from the far side of the moon, and just having different backups there, I think, is wise. Even on the Ispace lander that is in orbit right now, they have a small library on board of different cultural stuff from Japan. And on the Blue Ghost lander, they have a copy of a whole bunch of Wikipedia articles and other stuff from the Internet Archive, and a whole cache of music as well. So, I couldn't help but thinking about, in the future, if we do have a moon base and there's not enough stuff on board, if they can't get a good downlink, hey man, let's go take a quick trip over to that old lander that launched in the 2020s and get some new music.
Get some reading material off 2020's Wikipedia.
Right.
Moon first or Mars first?
What is this? ¿Por qué no los dos? Why not have both? Oh, man. To better China is not the ideal motive. Look what happened with the moon. We won. Let's go home now. I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that.
That's been the case, and that was what happened with Apollo. What you need, so
Yeah,
I'm getting into politics, and I'm sorry. You need a lasting reason that requires a presence, not
just because it's cool.
not an accomplishment. And that, it research is like I came across this with Neil deGrasse Tyson interview with Piers Morgan, I think. And I want to save a lot of this for the future show and future discussions. But basically, Neil pointed out that we haven't no exploration has been done for the sake of exploration. It's always been for conquest or competition. So we need a reason that isn't conquest or competition, because what happens is you set out to do the thing, and then once you do the thing, the interest is gone, and you don't have a reason to stay or do more or continue. And we need a reason to stay and do more and continue that is more resilient than just we did it first.
And that's why, in my, ignorant...
Yeah, and colonization is a terrible term, but yes.
Settlement, expansion.
Yeah. But this has been what's his name's goal for years, right? So maybe he's finally going to get the momentum he needs in order to be able to make that happen. But still, like that's not the reason to go, and I don't see it happening in 4 years, to be honest. Yeah, we need to be curiosity motivated, not colonization motivated.
I definitely believe that we need to be looking at asteroid mining. I mean, we got to do something about some of these near relocation. There we go.
I hope it's not relocation necessitated.
I believe that we need to do something about a lot of these near-Earth asteroids. Apophis is just one example. And, instead of either blowing it up into smithereens or slightly nudging it out of the way, let's put it in orbit around the moon and then mine it. We've got, just one of those rocks that are under 5 kilometers has more rare earth metals in it than we've mined in the past 1,000 years. Some of them have more, gold and palladium than we've mined in our entire human history. So I think that it would be a really good idea. And by having it done in orbit around the moon, we could prevent, crashing the market, so to speak, but be able to have a backup for all of these.
That's a slippery slope, though, dude. There's gold is the basis for a lot of things. And if you, because it's amount is set. And everybody complains because U.S. prints cash when they have trouble, but that reduces the value of all of the cash that exists. So if you suddenly have more gold that exists, whether it's been extracted and whether it's tangible or not, that's still going to change the price of all of the rest of the gold in the world. And you're not just talking about the United States, where in theory that they base their value of their cash on gold, though not explicitly.
Which we don't.
We did for a long time, and we're still using that as a relatable relationship of sorts. It's not a 1-to-1 relationship, but you're also talking about the value of antiquities that are made with gold, or the value of art that is made with gold, or the value of an engagement ring for somebody. Like that's got huge impacts that we need to think carefully about.
And I feel like it only affects the that value once it's actually accessible, because we already know that all this gold exists. So why didn't the value already plummet, knowing that there's more gold just in the asteroid belt than we will ever mine here on Earth?
I don't think that's exactly true.
In any case, I still think that it's a good idea to, be able to extract some of those resources, more things like the lithium and other rare earth metals to make electronics with, and have an industry looking for that cislunar economy, not to bring it back to Earth and crash the markets, but to actually utilize it and be building technology and, having manufacturing in space, around the moon, on the moon, and being able to have a way to be able to quickly send materials off to our other colonies, settlements, whatever you want to call them, on Mars and
civilizations.
Yes. So
why is your ring so expensive? Oh, because it's made from asteroid gold.
You got the asteroid gold? No way, man. Did you get it from Phaeton or did you get it from Apophis? You got the Phaeton gold? Oh, man. Jealous. Oh, man.
Yeah, our money is based on perception.
Yeah, we haven't been on the gold standard since the 70s. It's all fiat currency right now. It's all just trust and faith.
Yeah. They are optimal materials. So we flood the market with platinum. Does that mean our catalytic converter theft is going to go away?
Maybe. Invest in asteroid mining to stop crime here on Earth.
Not sure that's a direct relationship, but all right.
Hey man, whatever we can do to convince investors to invest all their money into it. Reduce the value of, say, gold, we can start to use it in more liberal amounts where it is actually useful. That I agree with, Aerospike.
On the engine bay of my favorite car, they line the interior with gold, gold foil, so that it reflects heat.
Yeah.
Invest in asteroid mining to do away with asphalt shingles. We'll shingle everything with gold.
So it's supposed to be a new golden age, right? Let's make it literal.
Oh God.
Rick V, good point. Maybe the thing to consider is when there is abundance of a resource, make sure that not just one country or company has control of the abundance.
Yeah, how are you going to do that? And that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Got to have as much.
All of these endeavors are those of the wealthy. All of them. And that none of that's going to trickle down to anybody.
Yeah, that's true as well.
You really think that it's going to be in such abundance that we're going to be able to start putting it on roofs and cathedrals? Nope. Oh, whoever spends the money to mine it gets it.
I would just want to use those materials. No, I meant toilets. What are you guys talking about? Aerospike. But yeah, someone exchangeable. We already gold plate the roofs of cathedrals. That was his point. Not all, but a lot. A lot of weird cathode-looking things on a lot of old buildings.
Stop stopping everyone's dreams. I have never been known as anything but a pragmatist.
That is his job. That is his job, to keep us from running away from ourselves and bringing us back to reality.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, in any case, I still think that it's good that we are doing a lot of these lunar missions. Later this year, we're going to have an astrobotic mission on a Falcon Heavy, launching their Griffin lander for the first time. And hopefully they've solved their plumbing issues so that their engines will actually work in space and be able to land successfully. And that one was the one that was supposed to have launched the NASA Viper rover that had a whole bunch more instruments, which, from what I understand, is being salvaged. The scientific instruments are going to be flying on different CLPS missions, commercial lunar payload services missions. And hopefully they will be able to, realize all of their goals. Sorry, we had gold on the mind, and be able to launch a lot of stuff like we did with the similar to some of the surveyor programs, where we're sending stuff that is going to be used by astronauts who are landing on the moon in the future. Especially if we can get stuff going at either the South or North Pole with all that lunar ice. Let's see here. Well, I think before we get into any other political conversations, did you guys want to have any other thoughts or things that you wanted to share before we ended this for now?
No, it's been a week.
It has been a week.
Same here.
All right. Well, without any other nuggets of wisdom, big thank you to everyone who is supporting the show and has become a member of the show. We wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, and it's because of your support that we are able to continue and hopefully bring you informative and some entertaining opinions about everything that's going on in spaceflight. Right after this, we're going to have a members exclusive show where we're going to a little bit get into some of the politics and get off topic a little bit more and go from there. But again, thank you to everyone for joining us.
Anything is on the table.
Anything. Literally anything's on the table. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And thank you to everyone who is supporting our show through memberships. You can join for as little as $1 a month. And until next time. Oh, sweet. Thank you. JS Web Music just became a member. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We'll see you in the member show right after this.
See you guys.
Keep moving onwards and upwards, everybody.